Show for you. Let's get started with our big story, and this is great news for India. Indian shooting sensation Manu Bhaker has made Olympic history. The 22-year-old, who is now a household name in the country, has become the first athlete in independent India's history to have won 2 medals in a single edition of the Olympics, spreading joy and sparking celebrations among a proud and grateful nation. Manu Bhaker and Sarabjot Singh today won a historic bronze medal in the 10-meter air pistol mixed team shooting event after defeating South Korea on day 4 of the Paris Olympics. Manu, who had already made headlines by becoming the first woman shooter to win a medal with her bronze in the 10-meter air pistol individual event, has now added another bronze in the mixed team event alongside Sarabjot Singh. The duo triumphed over their Korean rivals 16-10 in the bronze medal match in Paris, securing India's second medal in the ongoing Summer Games. And the news gets better. Manu Bhaker can still make it a hat-trick of medals in Paris, as she has the 25-meter pistol event left to play, where she will participate alongside Isha Singh. Her stupendous accomplishment marks a significant milestone in Indian sports history, with Manu setting multiple records. Let's take a look at these records. Manu Bhaker is the first Indian woman in 20 years since Suma Shirur at the 2004 Athens Games to enter an Olympic shooting final. She is the first Indian woman shooter to win an Olympic medal. She is the first Indian to win an Olympic medal in air pistol. Manu is the first Indian to win 2 medals in the same edition of the Olympic Games post-independence. She is also the first Indian shooter to win 2 Olympic medals. Manu Bhaker and Sarabjot Singh are the first Indian shooting pair to win a team medal at the Olympics. Manu Bhaker is also the first Indian to win Olympic medals in both individual and team events. A series of records there. 22-year-old Manu Bhaker is today a national hero, a sporting icon and a role model for millions of young Indians, many of whom are likely to draw inspiration from her to possibly take up the sport and win laurels for India in the future.
So events, I have 3 events in the Olympics, and for every Olympics, I try my best कि every event जितना अच्छा हो सके उतना अच्छा. Even in training में बहुत effort जाता है हर एक athlete का. So I make sure कि दोनों सारे events equally balanced रहें और equal amount of hard work I am able to deliver in both the events. So I would say कि उसी की वजह से and plus definitely the strategic planning of my coach Jaspal sir, I would dedicate like him also like a major chunk of the success because of his planning and everything, and then definitely the policies made by the federation and all, which were very inclusive of me being a like double event shooter, was very shooter friendly. So yeah. So yesterday we missed the gold and silver by like 1 point. So okay, so victories have been like narrowly missed by, I missed the silver by 0.1. Then yesterday by 1 point we went to the bronze medal match. So after the match we were like, you know what, let's just give our best tomorrow, and whatever follows we will not like regret it later. We will try our best. जो भी होगा ना देख लेंगे, बस कोशिश करेंगे अच्छे से. So I'm glad that he also shot well and I also shot well. So that's great.
बहुत अच्छा फील हो रहा है इस टाइम पे, और इंडिया के लिए पहली बार मैंने ओलंपिक में मतलब अपने इतना बेस्ट दिया, और होप करता हूँ नेक्स्ट ओलंपिक में भी अपना बेस्ट दूँ. वैसे हम इतना एक दूसरे से मतलब बातचीत नहीं होती, क्योंकि सब दोनों के एक तो अलग अलग इवेंट हो गए, टाइमिंग भी अलग अलग बैठती है, तो उसका फिर काफ़ी डिफरेंस है. बट वैसे हमारी मिक्स टीम फर्स्ट 2019 में नेशनल में बनी थी, और उसके बाद काफ़ी मैचेस में भी हमारी सेम रही है, और उनमें भी मेडल आए हैं काफ़ी.
मनु भाकर जी ने और सरबजोत जी ने कल क्वालिफाई किया था जी, तो आज इसका फाइनल होया जी. फाइनल में इसमें ब्रॉन्ज मेडल के लिए ही मैच खेले गया जी. ब्रॉन्ज मेडल के लिए मैच खेले गया। ब्रॉन्ज मेडल मनु भाकर जी को और मेरे सरजोत बेटे जी को मिल गया जी। मनु भाकर जी को बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ जी। मनु भाकर जी के फैमिली को बहुत बहुत बधाइयाँ जी। मैं पहले पिजोखड़ साहब गुरुद्वारे में जाऊँगा जी, मान मस्त होगा, उसके बाद घर जाऊँगा जी।
माता जी ने मैच देखा?
नहीं जी, मैच नहीं, वो भी नहीं, वो तो बिल्कुल भी मैं भी नहीं देखा कभी, उसकी माता भी नहीं देखा कभी जी।
आज भी मैं देखा
थोड़े दिन सर 4-5 साल पहले यहाँ मैच कराया था अभिषेक राणा जी ने जी। 4-5 साल पहले अभिषेक राणा जी ने यहाँ मैच कराया था जी, ओपन मैच कराया था जी। उस टाइम में सरजोत ने वर्ल्ड कप के लिए जाना था जी, तो ओपन मैच कराया यहाँ जी। मेरा डैडी भी आए हुए थे, हरदेव सिंह नंबरदार जी बटौली थे जी, और उसकी मामा मामी, मेरी बड़ी भरजाई आई हुई थी जी। तो उन्होंने यहाँ से मैच देखने लिए सरजोत यहाँ पे ब्रॉन्ज मेडल में ले सके जी। मतलब उसके पीछे बैठा ना, उसके उस पर दिमाग में इतना ज़्यादा प्रेशर था जी, ब्रॉन्ज मेडल में ले सके यहाँ ओपन मैच जी। ओपन मैच 4-5 साल पहले ही।
भारतवर्ष की बेटी, हरियाणा की बेटी मनु भाकर ने इतिहास रच दिया है। एक ही ओलंपिक में 2-2 पदक जीतकर भारत का नाम रोशन किया है। इस वक्त मेरे साथ मनु भाकर की मां है। आंटी, आपका टीवी 9 पर स्वागत है। बहुत बड़ा खुशी का पल है, बेटी ने पूरे भारत का नाम रोशन किया है। ओलंपिक में 2-2 पदक जीते हैं, 125 साल में ऐसा नहीं हुआ है। यानी कि हमारी छोरी, भारत की छोरी बेटों से कुछ कम है क्या?
नहीं, मैंने अपनी बेटी को बेटे की तरह ही रखा है, मैं भेदभाव किया ही नहीं। तो ये जो एक कहावत बनाई है कि हमारी जो बेटी है बेटों से कम नहीं है, क्योंकि मैंने मेरी बेटी को कभी बेटे से कम होने ही नहीं दिया। मैं शुरू से ही उसको बेटे की तरह रखते आ रही हूँ। मेरे बेटा और बेटी दोनों से समान है मेरे लिए।
हाँ। तो मैम, जिस तरीके से ये पूरा मैच हुआ, एक पहले उन्होंने पदक जीता और अब दोबारा एक और पदक जीता, आप लोगों के मन में क्या चल रहा था? क्योंकि मनु तो वहाँ पे बेस्ट परफॉर्मेंस देने के लिए ओलंपिक में तैयार थी, लेकिन आप लोगों के मन में क्या चल रहा था?
जसपाल सर का साथ था मैम, तो ये तो होना ही था। मुझे पूर्ण विश्वास था कि सर का साथ है, वो कभी भी खाली नहीं जाएगा जी।
आप लोगों ने जैसे 14 साल की उम्र से मनु ने स्टार्ट किया शूटिंग पिस्टल का ये गेम, आप लोगों की कैसी प्रतिक्रिया थी कि वो इस तरह के गेम में जाना चाहती है?
हमारी कोई प्रतिक्रिया नहीं थी, क्योंकि बच्ची अच्छे से करना चाहती है तो करती रहे, बस हम उसके साथ हैं। वो जो कहेगी मम्मी यहाँ चलो, ये करो, वो करो, हम दोनों और बेटा भी साथ में, हम तीनों मिल के उसका साथ देने के लिए हमेशा तैयार रहे हैं। मेरा बेटा तो अपना पेपर छोड़ करके, जब मनु को जरूरत पड़ती है कि आज मनु थोड़ा सा प्रेशर में, दबाव में है, तनाव में है, वो अपना काम छोड़ करके, अपना कॉलेज भुला के अपनी बहन को आता समय देने के लिए। तो मैं चाहती हूँ कि हर एक घर में ऐसा भाई हो, मेरे बेटे जैसा एक बेटा जरूर हो हर घर में, क्योंकि ऐसा बेटा यदि घर में होगा ना, वो बहनें हमेशा सुरक्षित और एक खुशनुमा माहौल घर में महसूस करेंगी।
जब मनु इस ओलंपिक के लिए जा रही थी, क्योंकि आपको बता दें पूरे 12 साल बाद ओलंपिक मिला है, वो भी शूटिंग में महिला खिलाड़ी ने जीता, और अब 2-2 पदक जीत के पूरे 125 साल का पूरा जो इतिहास है वो बनाया मनु ने। तो जब वो जा रही थी, कुछ कह के गई थी आपसे कि ओलंपिक में जा रही?
मैं सिर्फ एक बात बोलती हूँ, बेटा खुश होके जाओ, और बस मैं ये बोलती हूँ खुश होके जाओ बेटा। मैं और ये भी नहीं बोलती कि खुश होके आओ। फिर मैं अपने मन में भगवान से बोलती हूँ कि मेरी बेटी खुश होके गई है, तो प्लीज़ भगवान जी खुश होके वापस भेजना इसको। मैं दिल से ही भगवान से अपने आप से बात करती हूँ। मैं
इससे पहले भी मनु खेल चुकी हैं, और जो दूसरे तमाम इंटरनेशनल टूर्नामेंट्स रहे हैं उसमें उन्होंने गोल्ड मेडल जीता है, इस बार कांस्य पदक जीता। तो आपकी अगली बार की क्या सोच है, क्या करना चाहिए?
कोई सोच नहीं है, जो होगा अच्छे के लिए होगा, क्योंकि वो आगे का नहीं सोचती हूँ मैं। जो वर्तमान होता है उसी के बारे में ही सोचती हूँ, तो आगे का नहीं सोचूंगी मैं। आगे का जो दिन होगा उसी दिन सोचूंगी मैं।
What a proud moment for India. Manu Bhaker there making history at so many levels and inspiring an entire generation of Indians. All right, time for us to take a quick break here on Global Lens. Don't go anywhere. Plenty more on the other side, including the latest on the escalating tensions between Israel and Hezbollah.
Hey, careful, huh? My daddy got it from abroad. Hey, disaster! How will you pay for the loss now?
In stock market, you should take risk as per your capacity and knowledge. Trade in options very carefully.
Wow, Dikra! Absolutely perfect! Take risk with full understanding.
Over 20 healthcare trailblazers and leaders. 6 engaging sessions. 6 hours of engrossing conversations. Top trending healthcare issues. The Healthcare Summit 2024, an initiative by the TV9 Network and South First. Streaming on 3rd of August, only on News 9.
How do you fulfill that promise? Because ultimately expectations have to be met. If you look at the political landscape, is it really changing for women? And what is the inability of the forces that dead bodies surface, but not the living people?
For the very first time in our investigation, we unmasked the killer of Ravindra Matre.
In 5G, we have to stand with the world, and in 6G, we have to lead the world.
Winning a Grammy was an absolutely surreal experience.
This is News 9 Live, India's only digital exclusive live stream. For the early adopters, bringing you the news 24/7. For the smart audiences on the smartest TVs. News 9 Live. Stream now on your smart TVs.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this? Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News 9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's now shift our focus to the escalating tensions in the Middle East and what's happening between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon. The United States is leading a diplomatic dash to deter Israel from striking Lebanon's capital, Beirut, or major civil infrastructure in response to a deadly rocket attack on the Golan Heights. Washington is racing to avert a full-blown war between Israel and the Iranian-backed Lebanese movement, Hezbollah, after the attack on the Israeli-occupied Golan Heights on the weekend that killed 12 children. Israel and the US have blamed Hezbollah for the rocket strike, though the group has denied responsibility. The focus of the high-speed diplomacy is to constrain Israel's response by urging it against targeting densely populated Beirut, the southern suburbs of the city that form Hezbollah's heartland or key infrastructure like airports and bridges. Lebanon's Deputy Parliament Speaker, Elias Bousab, who says he has been in contact with US mediator Amos Hochstein since Saturday's Golan attack, has said Israel could avert the threat of major escalation by sparing the capital and its environs. If they avoid civilians and Beirut and its suburbs, then their attack could well be calculated, he said. Israeli officials have said their country wants to hurt Hezbollah but not drag the entire region into an all-out war. Israel has so far not made any commitment, though, to avoiding strikes on Beirut, its suburbs or civil infrastructure. The US State Department has said it would not comment on the specifics of diplomatic conversations, though it is seeking a durable solution to end all cross-border fire. Our support for Israel's security is ironclad and unwavering against all Iran-backed threats, including Hezbollah. That's what a spokesperson has said. However, White House spokesperson John Kirby later told reporters that Israel has every right to respond to the Golan strikes, but nobody wants a broader war. Sources say US efforts are aimed to achieve a calibrated approach similar to that which contained April's exchange of missile and drone attacks between Israel and Iran, sparked by an Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus. An Iranian official has said the United States has in fact conveyed several messages to Tehran since Saturday's attack, warning that escalating the situation would be detrimental to all parties. Now, Hezbollah is the most powerful of Iran's axis of resistance network of regional proxy groups and allied with Palestinian group Hamas. It has been trading fire with the Israeli military across Lebanon's southern border since the Gaza war erupted last October. Where is this headed? Let's put this question straight to our panel of experts. Joining me on Global Lens tonight is Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, former Indian diplomat, Professor Swaran Singh, Center for International Politics at the Jawaharlal Nehru University, and completing the panel tonight is Irina Sukuman, National Security and Geopolitical Analyst, who joins us live from New York. A warm welcome to all my guests. Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, let me begin with you. Where is this headed? Do you believe that America has really sent out an unequivocal message to Israel saying that an escalation into an all-out war is not warranted or desirable at this stage? Because on the face of it, or at least publicly, some of the utterances, including by the likes of Antony Blinken, seem to suggest Israel has the right to retaliate. What do you think is going on behind the scenes?
I think, Neha, you did the right thing in recalling what happened in April. If you remember, in April, and we had discussed it also in your show, the US had worked very hard at the back to ensure that the response would be carefully calibrated, because both sides are in a situation where they cannot lose face with their constituents. So, for instance, in April, Iran, for example, gave advance warning, and therefore the missiles did minimum damage. That is a calibrated response. In this particular case, given the complexity of the Lebanon crisis, given its long period of civil war, and the fact that it has an uneasy governance structure balance between Christians and Muslims on one hand, and given Hezbollah's close links with Iran, which has just had a presidential election where a moderate has been elected, and given the situation in the United States, which is in the middle of a presidential campaign, I think that it makes a lot of sense for the US from the back to try to ensure a calibrated response. So the question then is, what could be a calibrated response? That would be Israel striking specific targets, but not Beirut, not populated city structures, avoiding any civilian damage, and just trying to make military bases of Hezbollah its target. This would also avoid retaliation by Hezbollah on civilian targets deep within Israel, because in the conflict with Gaza, it has been a one-sided conflict. But if Lebanon is drawn in, it's not going to be one-sided. It would mean, first of all, Israel would have two fronts. Secondly, it would mean that the ongoing efforts by other important countries in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, etc., would get blunted, because they would not want to be drawn into a regional conflict where Lebanon is involved, because many had been to Lebanon in the past and have realized that what would be disastrous would be another civil war in Lebanon, where major powers would be drawn in. It would be a power struggle. So I think that if Mr. Blinken is successful, he would be actually doing what they are saying, which is averting a major escalation, which at this point of time in international relations, the region is ill-equipped to handle. And if there is a major escalation, other powers could be drawn in which case it could spread rapidly throughout the region. So I do hope that just like in April, where the situation was very tense and where it was managed with calibrated strikes and both sides informing each other in advance quietly through interlocutors that we are going to hit this target, we are going to hit that target, please make sure your civilians are out. If that kind of calibrated response is done, so that neither side loses face either, because that is also unfortunately very important these days, that nobody should lose face. If that can be arranged, then I think, Neha, we are out of a very, very tricky situation which is confronting us in this part of the world. Yeah.
No doubt about that, ma'am. We're all holding our breath and hoping and praying that this does not escalate into a full-blown war. Nobody needs that. Let me take this to Professor Swaran Singh. Professor Singh, you know, it's interesting. I read reports that when following the Saturday attack, a security cabinet meeting was held in Israel on Sunday. The two of the biggest hawks in Netanyahu's government, Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir were actually absent. And that has been read by many as a sign that Israel, even if it does go ahead and retaliate, will in fact stop short of escalating this into a full-scale war. I think it can be safely stated that the United States has a clear interest right now in ensuring that there is no further escalation. We know that the Ukraine war is anyway a very unpopular one in the United States, and that country is currently facing an election and tremendous political turmoil at home. Where do you see this going?
I think the sense, Neha, I noticed that you and the ambassador who just spoke have, is that this is not likely to escalate and become an all-out war. But this is also not going to stop any soon. That's the other end of what we are looking at. At the center of this storm is Benjamin Netanyahu. And there have been several experts who have mentioned that his political career perhaps continues just as long as the war does. So some kind of continuation is likely, but it's not likely to be continued in a fashion that becomes unacceptable to United States, which is fundamentally the country which is providing both weapons and moral and political support to Netanyahu, despite all the lip service of repeatedly saying that they want to see that this comes to an end, resolved through diplomatic dialogue. But it apparently looks like the same exercise which has been going on for the last 10 months is likely to continue. Hezbollah has been hitting Israeli targets right from day one, which is October 8 onwards. And likewise, Israel has also been hitting the various targets in south of Lebanon, assuming that they are supposed to be Hezbollah targets. And claims are that Hezbollah fighters, as many as 383 have already died, and 100 plus civilians have died in Lebanon. Sometimes because there are too many killings in Gaza, this part doesn't get quite clearly noticed. So some kind of war has already been going on. And we are looking at reports that Hezbollah has already vacated a lot of their areas in southern Lebanon where they think Israel is going to strike. So in some sense, it looks like also a bit of stage-managed exercise where both sides are basically, flying rockets on each other. Here, I think military-industrial complex is the ultimate profiteer. But otherwise, there's no fundamental change here. And I think what we are seeing here is all kinds of clear messages coming from all different directions. You made mention of message of the deputy speaker from Lebanon and messages going across to Iran and so on. I think it's a kind of a fixed match, as if, everybody is kind of talking that it's going to be calculated strikes, it's going to be not hitting airports, bridges, or city parts of Beirut, like it happened in 2006. So, what kind of situation are we facing here? That Israel fundamentally continues that war. And, once in a while there is a strike from either Iran or Hezbollah in Lebanon. But it's going on. That is the problem, that war is not coming to an end. And the United States apparently is not making any efforts in that direction. It makes efforts in the direction of making sure it doesn't become all-out war. But it's not either making efforts or it's not successful vis-a-vis Netanyahu. And I think in that sense, greater onus should go to where you mentioned the right-wing partners of coalition not showing up at the high security cabinet meeting. And I think internally, we have seen ministers resigning. So I think we are now likely to see greater hope being placed inside the cabinet and politics of Israel, where they would start putting some kind of expression of not being perfectly comfortable with the war continuing for 10 months and so on.
Yes.
Apparently, outside powers, France also is involved. About 20,000 French people live in Lebanon.
Yes.
They are also passing on messages between Israel and Hezbollah. But who can stop it? I think it's only inside politicians of Israel who can put a restraint on Netanyahu and tell him to now say goodbye to politics. Externally, there is no one who is able to influence it.
Okay, I'm not sure if even Biden wanted to say goodbye to politics. Many believe that the Democrats practically held a gun to his head and got him to step aside and make way for Kamala Harris. That's what politicians do, unfortunately, and it doesn't look like Netanyahu wants to pack his bags and go home anytime soon. But Netanyahu also has to realize, just how many fronts can he open? This is a war that's already been raging on for months together. Clearly the United States also, as you said, needs to play a bigger role. Let me take this to our guest from the United States, Irina Sukuman. Irina, I think it would be pretty safe to say that both the Ukraine war and the ongoing Israel-Hamas war in Gaza are quite unpopular with very large sections of Americans. And this is a country that is facing an election less than 4 months from now. I don't think Americans have an appetite for yet another war. Therefore, there is plenty at stake here for the United States in trying to ensure that another full-blown war does not erupt in the Middle East. What do you think is happening behind the scenes? Clearly, Washington is engaged in hectic parleys as we speak to ensure the tensions are dialed down.
Well, first of all, I would say that the war in Ukraine is far less popular with far more people than Israel's self-defense war in Gaza for various reasons. But far bigger issue is the fact that most people understand that the war with Hezbollah may be a second front, but it's not a different war. It's a war. It's a strategy by Iran's axis of resistance to encircle Israel, to destroy Israel. In 2015, Iran's Ayatollah Khamenei announced a plan to destroy Israel by 2014, 25 years, and weaponizing all these proxies and isolating Israel politically and militarily is part of that plan. So Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis have been coordinating their activities. Yes, they're opening, they have new fronts, but they are not necessarily starting new or different wars. As far as the Biden administration is concerned, they're facing multiple dilemmas on multiple fronts. First of all, any sort of expansion of the conflict is going to be detrimental to the political ambitions of the Democratic Party. Any sort of escalation is seen as a sign of mismanagement of the war effort, and it will give a political advantage to Donald Trump's campaign. So that's the domestic angle of the situation. On a foreign policy angle, there is this concern that with more players entering the game simultaneously, there will naturally be more human victims, more chaos, and
nobody wants that. Like I said, way too many people have already died in the two wars that are already going on. Though I'm completely out of time, Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, I'll give you the last word. Even as we are hoping that diplomacy succeeds here, and clearly the United States, is working the phone lines, but Netanyahu will also need to realize it's at some point that Israel cannot spread itself too thin. I mean, they're already engaged in a months-long war with Hamas, and if anything, Hezbollah, if engaged with in a full-blown conflict, could actually prove to be a far bigger adversary than Hamas.
I'm afraid, Neha, that as you rightly pointed out, it's impossible to force politicians out of power. You gave a very good example with regard to Joe Biden, which I agree. Unfortunately, Netanyahu does not seem to understand that in his quest to stay in power, he is damaging Israel's capacity to fight back future conflicts on one hand, and secondly is destroying Israel's credibility as a peace-loving state surrounded by neighbors who question Israel's right to exist. This was a basic which most of Israel's friends understood clearly, including India, which has been very supportive of Israel right through. But as time goes by, as more civilian damages happen, as more dead children are buried, etc., you could see a shift of public opinion moving away from Israel. And for this, Netanyahu is responsible. If he wanted, he could have gone along with the mediators, got the hostages out, and tried to work towards some kind of a settlement, because clearly it is not possible for Israel to continue to govern indefinitely a hostile Gaza Strip. It is not possible. But Netanyahu doesn't seem to understand that. And his sentiments are not necessarily shared by everybody in Israel either. So he is actually in a situation where, unless the Israeli politicians force him out, this war will continue because it suits Netanyahu's struggle for political survival. That is very unfortunate.
It is unfortunate.
He has not put his country before his political ambitions. His political ambitions come first. That is really, really unfortunate.
I couldn't agree more with you, ma'am. I think this is really all about Netanyahu's own political survival, and way too many people have paid a very heavy price just for Netanyahu's own political ambitions. How much longer can this go on for? Well, we'll wait to see, but let's certainly keep our fingers crossed and hope that this matter is de-escalated at the earliest with the intervention of the United States, if that's what it takes. On that note, Ambassador Bhaswati Mukherjee, Professor Swaran Singh, Irina Sukuman, thank you so much for joining me on Global Lens tonight. All right, on that note, let's take a quick break here on the show. On the other side, lots more news from other parts of the globe, including the political unrest and chaos in Venezuela.
खेला होगा हर नहले पे दहला होगा दिल बड़ा है स्टेज बड़ा है पूरा भारत साथ खड़ा है साथ खड़ा है गेम बड़ा है ड्रिबल लाइक अ रैप पास 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 सेटिंग अप द ट्रैप kick it hard in the boot chuck there for the ball chuck there for the ball chuck there for the ball chuck there for the ball.
Why is the state not looking at putting an embargo on that?
As a Telangana person, I will not accept.
How do ordinary folks deal with this?
For the very first time in our investigation, we unmasked the killer of Ravindra Matre.
In 5G, we have to stand with the world, and in 6G, we have to lead the world.
Winning a Grammy was an absolutely surreal experience.
Welcome back. You're watching Global Lens on News9 Live with me, Neha Khanna. Let's now get you the latest on the political unrest and chaos that have engulfed Venezuela. Political unrest, violent protests and chaos have completely engulfed Venezuela following the country's disputed presidential election. Venezuelans across the country have taken to the streets to protest the election, clashing with the police as uncertainty swirls around the results amid allegations of widespread election fraud. The election on Sunday was the most critical one in years, with Venezuela's future on the line. Many young opposition supporters say they would leave the country if authoritarian leader Nicolas Maduro is re-elected, pointing to the devastating collapse of the country's economy and violent repression under his rule. However, the opposition is energized as it presents the ruling establishment its toughest challenge in 25 years. Though Maduro had promised free and fair elections, the process has been marred by allegations of foul play, with opposition figures arrested, the opposition's key leader banned from running, media outlets blocked, and overseas Venezuelans largely unable to vote. Even though Maduro was formally named the winner by the country's electoral body, which is stacked by the president's allies, the opposition has rejected the results, and other Latin American leaders have also refused to recognize the controversial leader's win. Maduro has been in power since the 2013 death of his predecessor, Hugo Chavez. If he takes office again, it will be his third consecutive 6-year term and the continuation of Chavismo, the left-wing populist ideology named after his predecessor. On the other side is a unified opposition movement that overcame their divisions to form a coalition. Its energized campaign stoked hope among a disillusioned populace that was desperate for change in a country in such dire economic straits that some 8 million Venezuelans have fled overseas. The opposition candidate, former diplomat Edmundo Gonzalez, stepped into the role after the highly popular leader, Maria Corina Machado, was barred from contesting the election following allegations that she did not include some food vouchers on her asset declaration. But many still see her as a driving force behind the opposition, which had promised to restore Venezuela's democracy and rebuild its once impressive economy if it won. The election results, as we said, are disputed. Officially, the National Electoral Council has declared Maduro the winner. However, the opposition says that their tallies show that Gonzalez, the opposition leader, actually won.
Protests erupted across Venezuela Monday, shortly after sitting President Nicolas Maduro was declared winner in a disputed election. Their results were met with doubt in Washington and beyond, and independent pollsters have called the official numbers implausible. In the Caracas neighborhood of El Valle and the city of Maracay, police fired tear gas while protesters blocked roads. A large statue of late President Hugo Chavez, a mentor to Maduro, was torn down in the city of Coro. And in the pro-government stronghold of Katia, there was a traditional cacerolazo protest, banging pots and pans.
I came to the street. We want freedom. We're tired of this government. We want to change. We want to be free in Venezuela. We want our families to return here. We don't want them to leave anymore. We want to be free with our families.
The United States in 2018 called Maduro's re-election at that time to be fraudulent. His most recent win cements his third term in office and extends the Socialist Party's 25-year rule. Throughout the years, Maduro has presided over an economic collapse, the migration of about a third of the population, and sanctions imposed by the U.S. The Venezuelan Electoral Authority said Maduro won 51% of the vote on Sunday, but independent pollsters say it was a decisive win for opposition candidate Edmundo Gonzalez. Gonzalez has repeatedly warned against bloodshed. However, on TV Monday morning, Maduro claimed paid agitators assaulted electoral agency officers.
We are familiar with this movie, and we know how to face these situations and how to defeat the violent.
Shortly after the results of Sunday's election were announced, opposition leader Maria Corina Machado said the opposition won 73.2% of the voting tallies. Maduro's rival, the former diplomat Gonzalez, spoke to an audience.
We have in our hands the tallies that demonstrate our categorical and mathematically irreversible victory.
The opposition's numbers are sharply different to the country's electoral commission, which called the election for Maduro with 51% of the vote. Machado called on supporters to gather in front of UN offices in Caracas on Tuesday, while Maduro's campaign manager has called on their supporters to march Tuesday as well. Venezuela's defense minister has warned against allowing a repeat of the, quote, terrible situations of 2014, 2017, and 2019. In those years, anti-government protesters took to the streets and hundreds were killed.
Let's now get you some news from Kerala in southern India. The death toll in the devastating landslides in Kerala has been rising at an alarming rate. The landslides in the Wayanad district of the state have left at least 120 people dead and hundreds are feared trapped. At least 3 landslides hit the area in the space of just 4 hours amid a torrential downpour. Multiple agencies, including the NDRF, have joined the rescue operations in the hilly areas near Mepuri in Wayanad. More than 100 people have also been injured and admitted to various hospitals in the district. More than 3,000 people have been rescued and moved to various relief camps. Among the affected areas in Wayanad are Mundakai, Churalmala, Atamala, Nulpuza. Many roads have collapsed and a bridge has been swept away. Several areas have become unreachable. The State Health Minister, Veena George, has said we have to re-establish connectivity. Helicopters will be brought in, but the weather is bad. The Chief Minister has announced that the State Health Department has set up a control room. Those in need of emergency assistance can contact authorities on the helpline numbers that have been given out. Wayanad, a hilly district which is part of the Western Ghats mountain range, is prone to landslides during the monsoon season. Videos show muddy water gushing through unpaved streets and forested areas, washing away homes and leaving people and vehicles stranded. A bridge connecting Churalmala to Mundakai and Atamala collapsed, isolating the two places and making it difficult for rescue personnel to reach trapped families. Most victims are people who worked on tea and cardamom estates and were likely to have been asleep in their makeshift tents when the landslide struck. And even as it reels under the tragedy, Kerala is bracing for more rain as the Weather Office has issued a red alert for at least 8 districts. This alert has been issued for Idukki, Thrissur, Palakkad, Malappuram, Kozhikode, Wayanad, Kannur and Kasaragod districts. 4 districts are in fact under an orange alert. Prime Minister Narendra Modi spoke to Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan this morning and assured him of all help to the LDF government. He's also asked the BJP chief, JP Nadda, to ensure that party workers assist with the rescue effort. The Prime Minister's office has announced compensation of 2 lakh rupees for the families of those who've been killed. Those who've been injured will be given compensation of 50,000 rupees each. Congress leader and former Wayanad MP Rahul Gandhi has said he is deeply anguished by the calamity and expressed his condolences to the families of those who have been killed. Gandhi too said he had spoken to the Chief Minister and the District Collector about the rescue operations. The landslides are the worst disaster to hit Kerala since 2018 when deadly floods killed more than 400 people.
പരിക്കേറ്റ് വിവിധ ആശുപത്രികളിൽ 128 പേർ ചികിത്സയിലുണ്ട്. ഇന്നലെ രാത്രി ഉറങ്ങാൻ കിടന്നവരാണ് എല്ലാവരും. ആ ഘട്ടത്തിലാണ് കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളടക്കമുള്ളവർക്ക് നേരം പുലരുന്നതിന് മുൻപ് ഇത്തരമൊരു സംഭവത്തിൽപ്പെട്ട് ജീവൻ നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട് മണ്ണിൽ പുതഞ്ഞു പോയത്. ഒട്ടേറെ പേർ ഒഴുകിപ്പോയിട്ടുണ്ട്. മലപ്പുറം ജില്ലയിൽ നിലമ്പൂരിനടുത്ത് പോത്തുകല്ലിൽ ചാലിയാറിൽ നിന്ന് 16ഓളം പേരുടെ മൃതദേഹങ്ങൾ കണ്ടെത്താനായിട്ടുണ്ട്. അതിനു പുറമെ ശരീരഭാഗങ്ങളും ചിലത് കണ്ടെത്താൻ കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. 34 മൃതദേഹങ്ങളാണ് ഇതിനകം തിരിച്ചറിഞ്ഞിട്ടുള്ളത്. 18 മൃതദേഹങ്ങൾ ബന്ധുക്കൾക്ക് വിട്ടു നൽകിയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇന്ന് വൈകുന്നേരം ലഫ്റ്റനൻ്റ് കേണലിൻ്റെ നേതൃത്വത്തിലുള്ള സൈനിക ടീം ഈ പുഴ മുറിച്ച് കടന്ന് മുണ്ടക്കൈയിലെ മാർക്കറ്റ് മേഖലയിലെത്താൻ കഴിഞ്ഞു. അവിടെ കുടുങ്ങിക്കിടക്കുന്ന പരിക്കേറ്റവരുണ്ട്. അവരെ മുഴുവൻ ആളുകളെയും രക്ഷപ്പെടുത്തി ഈ പുറത്തേക്ക് എത്തിക്കുന്ന വടംകെട്ടി എത്തിക്കുന്നൊരു കേന്ദ്രമുണ്ട്. ആ കേന്ദ്രത്തിലേക്ക് എത്തിച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ് അവരെ മുഴുവൻ. അപ്പോൾ പരിക്കേറ്റ് കിടക്കുന്നവരെ മുഴുവൻ അവിടുന്ന് മാറ്റാൻ കഴിഞ്ഞു എന്നുള്ള വാർത്തയാണ് ഇപ്പോൾ ഏറ്റവും ഒടുവിൽ ലഭിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്.
Let's now get you some news from California in the United States. A man has been arrested for allegedly starting a California wildfire that has burned through more than 370,000 acres of land, destroyed scores of buildings and forced thousands from their homes. 42-year-old Ronnie Stout appeared in court on Monday after being charged with arson for allegedly igniting the park fire by pushing a burning car into a ravine. The fire is now the 6th largest wildfire recorded in the state of California, burning in 4 counties about 100 miles north of Sacramento. It has torn through, as we said, over 370,000 acres, an area that's slightly larger than the city of Los Angeles. It has destroyed more than 100 structures and has been contained to just about 12% degree. More than 8,000 residents have been told to evacuate their homes. There have been no reported deaths or injuries in the fire so far. Blazing temperatures and gusty winds have contributed to the park fire's rapid growth. The fire is one of more than 100 burning fires across the West Coast currently that have destroyed buildings and caused widespread evacuations.
Despite the best efforts of firefighters and support crews, the 6th largest wildfire in California's history continued to burn through a remote area north of state capital Sacramento on Monday. The park fire grew slightly to scorch some 370,000 acres as of Monday evening, according to CAL FIRE. That's after it doubled in size over the weekend to become the country's largest active wildfire. Here's CAL FIRE Public Information Officer Sergio Arellano.
The things that surprised us all is how fast the fire moved in such a short amount of time. I have not personally seen a fire grow so fast in such a short amount of time. We can kind of say that there was a lot of fuel in the area where the fire started, and coupled with the winds, where we've seen a little rise in wind, over the previous fire seasons, that I think it was just the right recipe to get this fire going and going really quickly.
With milder temperatures and higher humidity, the fire was about 14% contained by Monday evening. Some 4,800 firefighters focused on building and strengthening control lines, hoping to bring more of the fire to heal. But changing conditions threaten to undo that progress.
Right now, what we're anticipating is the weather is going to start rising in temperature. So that's going to present a challenge in itself, right, with our firefight. Our tendency is probably going to be that we're going to see the fire grow a little bit.
Adding to the state's struggle, another wildfire started on Monday in Southern California's Riverside County. The Nixon fire had burned over 3,700 acres and was 0% contained as of Monday evening, according to CAL FIRE. Dry conditions and strong winds helped it rapidly spread, prompting evacuation orders for surrounding communities. Officials have said a heightened risk of fires was due to the combination of a hotter than usual June and an abundance of dry vegetation following an unusually wet winter and spring.
Okay, from the United States, let's now turn our attention to North Korea, and this is a story that may surprise you. North Korean leader Kim-Jong-Un is more obese than ever, and his deputies are looking for foreign medicines to treat him for high blood pressure and diabetes. Well, that's what South Korea's spy agency has said. Some have been quoted as saying, Kim Jong-un may be suffering from medical conditions that are difficult to address or treat with the currently available medicines. The 40-year-old dictator weighs about 308 pounds and this is believed to be his heaviest weight ever. It puts him at a high risk of heart disease. Officials say he has been showing signs of high blood pressure and diabetes since his early 30s. South Korean officials also say, and I quote, "We concluded that Kim's health issues are likely due to stress, smoking and drinking. If left untreated, they say Kim could be affected by hereditary cardiovascular diseases, as both his grandfather and father, who ruled the reclusive communist regime before him, died of heart issues." Kim is said to be looking for alternative medicinal substances, which has prompted speculation that he could be suffering from conditions that cannot be treated immediately. While there is no way for outsiders to know about Kim Jong-un's exact health, Seoul's spy agency has relied on artificial intelligence techniques and forensics video analysis of Kim Jong-un to investigate his condition. Kim's health remains a top concern abroad, as he has not formally anointed a successor to the nuclear-armed nation, which is increasing its confrontation with the United States and its ally, South Korea. Kim has also been bolstering his personality cult, attempting to cement his status as the ruler of the regime and win public support amid economic woes. South Korea's spy agency, NIS, believes that despite lacking a formal announcement, Kim's preteen daughter, named Kim Joo-I, is likely the heir apparent, with most of her public appearances involving attending military activities with her father. She is believed to be around 10 or 11 years of age and first appeared in 2022 alongside Kim as the duo watched an intercontinental ballistic missile test and subsequently attended a massive military parade. New intelligence indicates that his daughter is actually secretly undergoing succession training to prime her for taking control of the secretive country from her father. All right, as we wrap up this edition of Global Lens, let's get you a story from Singapore. Would you fancy a salad with insects in it? Sounds appetizing or gross? Makes you want to try the delicacy or makes your stomach turn? Well, believe it or not, Singapore has approved insects as food. Yes, you heard it right, food. The famous House of Seafood restaurant, known for its iconic chili crab, is now among a growing list of food establishments in Singapore that are looking to put insects like crickets on their menu, after a recent government approval marked them as safe for human consumption. Here's the story.
Fancy salad garnished with black-field crickets or satay chicken skewers with some extra protein. This Singapore restaurant is putting insects on their menu. It's among a growing list of food establishments looking to do so after a recent government approval marked insects as safe for human consumption. So how do insects taste? A table of 4 was invited to the House of Seafood restaurant before the official launch of the menu.
It's just like the texture of your eating dry shrimp. If you think dry shrimp is pleasant, then it is. If you eat it with the eye closed, you can tell it. It's a cricket.
In terms of taste, meat tastes better, but I'm willing to try eating it occasionally because it's a novelty to me.
Singapore approved 16 species of insects for consumption, including crickets and grasshoppers. They have been proven to be a rich source of fat, protein, vitamins, fibre and minerals, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. Food security researcher Paul Teng calls the latest policy a step in the right direction.
Countries like Thailand, Cambodia and Laos have had many generations of consumers eating insects. So there's no yuck factor anymore. It's part of their normal diet. Now we need to build that in Singapore because we don't have a history of eating insects.
At House of Seafood, founder Francis Ng says the initial response from customers has been positive. The restaurant can officially launch the menu for sale when importers get paperwork from the Singapore Food Agency. Currently importing from Thailand, he hopes to farm his own edible insects in the future.
Vertical farming for these insects is good, especially organic. Whatever I left in my restaurant vegetable, I can leave it to them. That would be the best way. So I know what the insect is eating. I hope this can be a halal segment also. But now I haven't halal yet. Because the insect, what they're eating, they still don't know.
Want to try these dishes with insects in them? Edible insects as they're being called? Don't know about you, but I certainly will give it a pass. Well, that's all the time we have on this edition of Global Lens. Thanks so much for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow.
Cooking is an act of love. The first act of love we receive from our mothers in the families.
Modern Indian food is all about contemporary and innovative approach to traditional Indian cooking.
The presentation it's also important, no?
I want to wear this white coat every day and then be a chef.
There are stories. If we name a whiskey is Indri, then there is a whole story behind that.
Cooking food is like a therapy, and eating one is like a pleasure I can give it to myself. With Lounge Nights, I'm on a journey to celebrate and recognize the best food and nightlife establishments in various cities across India.
Radical presents Lounge Nights every Saturday and Sunday only on Newsline Live.
In just the blink of an eye, a playground in Israel-occupied Golan Heights was transformed into a killing field. Children's playful calls were silenced by the eerie calm of death, punctuated by the screams of the wounded and cries for vengeance. This was the deadliest attack in Israel since fighting broke out between Israel and the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah a few weeks ago, and has raised the spectre of an all-out war that no one wants. So will the attack on Golan Heights lead to an all-out war in West Asia? Newsline Plus decodes. Let's first understand what the Golan Heights are. Home to some 40,000 people, largely from the Syrian Druze population, the Golan Heights are a strategically significant plateau located in southwestern Syria, approximately 60 kilometers from Damascus. The Golan Heights were captured by Israel from Syria during the Six-Day War in 1967 and formally annexed in 1981. Now, Israel's occupation of the Golan Heights remains unrecognized by the international community, but the plateau provides Israel with vital security advantages, such as high-altitude observation points over Syria and control over critical water resources. Syria's